Even if you have a master's degree, even if you're a doctor, people decide they don't want to be doctors anymore and they do something else. It's not unheard of. People do it all the time. I have an advanced degree too. I left that behind. I walked away and I'm doing something completely different now. People still think it's kind of, avant-garde to do that, but actually people do it more and more now when you realize that what you picked when you were 22 for your lifelong career di didn't end up working out for you when you were 40.
Welcome to Gap the Gig, the show for dads reimagining how work fits into life, not the other way around. It's where we talk about what comes next, how to make sense of the in-between, and who we become in the process. I'm your host, Michael Jacobs, and my guest today is Stephanie Cordes. She works with people who reach a point where career success and the life they want to live are no longer pointing in the same direction. Stephanie's a career ownership coach with the Entrepreneur's Source. Get clear on what they actually want their life to look like and evaluate different paths forward without rushing into a decision they'll regret later. Stephanie's lived this herself. She's a wife, a mom, and a former corporate professional who realized that checking all the boxes didn't automatically mean she was building the right life. Now she helps others navigate that same moment with a calm, clarity-first approach that replaces panic with perspective. Stephanie, welcome to the show. Really glad to have you here.
Thank you, I'm glad to be here.
Appreciate that. So you spend a lot of time talking to people right at that moment where something kind of feels off, but nothing is necessarily broken yet. When
Mhm.
someone first reaches out to you and says, I think something needs to change, but I don't know what's usually going on for them?
Well, sometimes there's just some quiet misalignment going on. People aren't really happy and they don't know why. And that's usually the start of it. They start to feel like, "Maybe I need a new job." But that's not really it. So, that's where we start. We start with everyone at the beginning talking about, "Well, let's talk about what your goals are for the future." And then, we get into that talking across 4 different dimensions: income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity. And people typically haven't been asked those questions before or if ever, and if they have been, it hasn't been for a very long time.
Right. And so when you talk about misalignment, it's within
Mhm.
those four cornerstones that you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So we talk about lifestyle, so maybe the work balance isn't working for them, you know? Our lives change a lot over the years. So it could be, when you're first out of college, if you don't have a family yet, maybe you're willing to work 60 or 70 hours a week.
Right.
But over time, lives can change a lot. So if you have children, suddenly working that many hours doesn't may not work for you anymore. So that's why it's good to reassess, what are your goals? You didn't really probably think a lot about work-life balance when you were 25.
Right.
But that'll be different when you're older. So it's good to reassess what really is important to you. And that's a big part of it. Work-life balance is a big part of it.
Absolutely. I think a lot of dads, the ones I talk to, that's what they
Mhm.
struggle with, right? Of it's not just, you know, do I like my work, but it's finding meaningful work. And then once you do find that meaningful work, how do you balance that work with also being present at home, being present for those that you care most about, and that balance between your meaningful work and your home life is a challenge. And you make an interesting point about lifestyle. Your lifestyle, I think for a lot of dads, lifestyle in their early to mid 20s is very different than the lifestyle they expect to have in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it may
Right.
be. Because
Mhm.
life evolves, life changes.
Okay.
And I know you mentioned lifestyle is one of those four cornerstones.
Mhm.
And I think you said income was another.
Yeah.
That obviously
Mm.
changes right over time. You typically are hoping that you're climbing the income ladder as you your path. How do you align those each of those cornerstones together?
Right. So, what I hear a lot, and what used to surprise me doesn't surprise me anymore, is that sometimes people realize they don't need as much income as they needed before. Now, that's not true for everybody, and especially when people don't have enough income, it's hard to think about your wants when your needs aren't being met. So, I mean, let's recognize that. Some people, everyone needs a certain level of income, and that's it. But for some people, for some fortunate people, they do come to realize, look, I don't need to make the amount of money that I'm making now. I could actually make less if I could find, to your point, meaningful work. Sometimes people, when they realize they're a cog in the wheel and they don't even like what they're doing, they say, if I could find something that I really enjoyed or something that, did provide a useful service to people or a product that mattered, I wouldn't mind making less money.
Right.
Money is great and it can buy you a lot of things, but it doesn't buy you more time with your kids.
Right.
So all of these things together, when you give people a chance to sit for a minute and think about these different goals, and that's how you start putting it all together. You give yourself permission to dream a little bit. And I went through this process myself. I'm a corporate refugee. I love that term. I think it captures kind of the whole thing. I was in the corporate world. I did very well. And I realized these things weren't working for me. And I didn't go looking for a career ownership coach. I was just frustrated and burnt out. And so I was just looking for another job,
Right.
just to turn the page and find something else that I didn't think it would make me happy. I just thought it would distract me for a while and hoped for the best. I figured I'd end up being just as miserable, but I was just ready to turn the page. And instead, I bumped into a career ownership coach and went through this exercise with her. And it gave me an opportunity to think about things I had never thought about before. And I did quickly realize I didn't need to make what I was making. You have that drive, I think, especially as a professional. You want to keep climbing, you want to keep making more money. And it's hard, I think, when you have a family to take away. You don't want to feel like you're taking away. If you're making a certain income level, it's hard to think that, you want to peel that back. You don't want to be perceived to taking anything away from your family. At the same time, if you're missing out on things and you can't be the parent to go to the party, you can't be there to go to the ceremony for this or that or the other thing, that weighs on you too. And you have a partner and you're trying to do this together. So, taking the time to work on these goals, what you end up doing, we put it together in a North Star statement. And that is something that will encompass all of these goals. And then it gives you a directional statement. Where is this going? Where is your life going? What do you want it to look like? And then you can use that to measure any possibility that you're considering, any income path for the future, whether it's, the W 2, it should start with the W 2 job that you're in now and anything that you might consider for the future. That's where I always start with my clients is with goals and creating a North Star statement, something that most people haven't thought of for a very long time.
Right. And that North Star statement, I presume, is very personal, right?
Yeah.
It's catered to the individual that you're working with. So,
Yeah.
yes, they might be in a W 2 today, and maybe
Mhm.
their North Star points to another W 2 type job, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it points to starting their own business or doing some sort of contracting or doing something more in the service sector, per se.
Right. Well, the North Star will be agnostic to a particular income path. It's going to talk about the goals they want, the income level they're looking for. It's going to talk about their goals for lifestyle, their goals for retirement, how they want to spend their day, what they like to do, what they want to have more time for. So then you use that North Star to look at different income paths or vehicles for success, whether that's staying in the W 2 world, whether that's looking at, meeting your goals through investments in real estate or the stock market or different types of business ownership. Like if there's a business down the street, you could look into buying that. You could start a business from scratch. You could do a consultancy. You could sell stuff on Amazon or Etsy, or you could look into franchising.
Got it. Got it.
Mhm.
So you talk to a lot of dads who might already look successful on paper, but they still feel like something's off.
Yeah. Mhm.
What does that usually sound like when they first start talking it through?
Sure. Well, sometimes they just try to kind of downplay it or joke about it, or maybe even apologize for bringing it up. Like, I know I should be grateful, I make X amount of dollars, but, my wife's mad because I'm never home. And I really thought, we waited X number of years to have kids, or I got married late. And, now I'm never home, but I don't know what to do because we have this great lifestyle and we don't want to give that up. But I'm never home. This isn't what I pictured.
Right.
What else can I do? I mean, are there really other options for me out there? Because a lot of times when people think about other options, and this was me too, I thought I could be a business owner in theory. Why not? I was a business person. I was successful. I worked for top 10 insurance companies. Um, but I didn't have any great ideas. I like to talk about the guy who thought of the Ring camera. Well, why can't I be that guy? I don't have any great ideas. I'm not gonna invent it's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna invent anything amazing. So I'm not gonna be that person. But there are tons of opportunities for business ownership. You don't have to think of a great idea. And I just needed to learn about that. So I just lucked into meeting a business ownership coach who first, after talking to me about my goals, said, I think you'd be a great business owner. And I was like, well, yeah, but I don't have any good ideas. So that's been always a problem for me, and I don't want to be a consultant because I did consulting work already, but I didn't feel like I could get enough clients to support myself. And I'm sure I was right about that. So, I think that a lot of the people that I meet were a lot like me, whether they're moms or dads or single people. They feel the same thing after being in the corporate world for so long, like I'm kind of stuck here. I achieved what I wanted to achieve, but now that I'm here, kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do.
Right. And so, in trying to address that and acknowledging this sort of dichotomy of I've got, I'm doing fine, maybe professionally, but not personally. I feel like in my conversations with other dads that there is this pressure to fix things fast,
Yeah.
right? And it's hard to recognize that it's not necessarily a fast fix all the time.
Right. Right.
Wa- it really, you need to slow down it,
Yeah.
to even when it feels uncomfortable to do so. You
Hmm.
may feel motivated, like, yeah, I need to make changes right now, but
Right.
that's not how things tend to work, right?
Well, if you do things fast, you're being reactive, right? Like, I'm gonna put it fast. And actually, that's what I was trying to do when I was looking for another job. I just was ready to,
Yeah.
go on to the next thing and hope for the best. That's reactive.
Right.
But if you stop for a minute, you know, figure out what your goals are, create that North Star statement, and go through, what I offer my clients is a process of education, awareness, and discovery. Take some time to learn about what options there are for you out there. You Every step that you take as you work on those goals and think about those different dimensions and put together your North Star, you are making progress. So you're taking small steps forward that are helping to bring you clarity, and you're reducing the unknowns, and you are taking steps forward, and you need to kind of recognize it as that. So you're not being reactive, and you're taking a thoughtful approach to get to the right place. And when you make reactive decisions, you often end up in the wrong place. So I worked with people, I worked with clients that, they worked with me, but they were also in a big hurry too. And I work with clients who are still interviewing for jobs, and I support that and track on it because I want them to choose the right path.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people that work with me don't go into business ownership. They do stay in the W-2 world, but maybe they shift and take a different path. Look at find a better position that better meets their goals. So I celebrate all that with my clients, all the different paths and different ways they might go and track on that. And I've certainly worked with a lot of people who, in their hurry to find something else, go into the wrong W-2 job and then come back to me, 6 months or a year later,
Right.
to start again and try to find the right thing.
And you said that the goal of finding your North Star essentially is clarity, right? If
Yeah.
I'm pointing that out correctly. So when someone really has that, when they have that clarity, what does that actually look like in real life?
Yeah. So what it looks like is you take that North Star and then you use it to measure against all the different possible income paths. So what that allows you to do and what I'm always coaching to is is the point of clarity where you find the right income path that meets your North Star goals. So it means you wait for the right position, the right W-2 position. You find the right, whether it's an investment strategy or you find a business ownership opportunity that's the right one for you and reach that point of clarity that this is the right thing for me. And that's what I'm coaching to, that point of clarity.
Got it. That makes sense.
Mhm.
So when you help dads kind of untangle what they think they want from what they actually want
Yeah.
with their lives, what does that
Mhm.
look like when that process of untangling?
Mhm. So, it starts I've got some great tools that help me do that and work through that, through that conversation. So I have a great portal that includes those tools, and there's some things, some exercises to work on and an assessment. And then, we talk through it. And I asked some things that people probably I remember when my coach asked me, "What do you do for fun?" And I was like, "Fun? Like laundry?" I don't have an answer for that. I work full time, got a bunch of kids, a husband. Um, what do you want to have more time? What would you like to have more time for in the future? That's kind of an interesting question. No one had ever asked me that before. So there's a lot of time spent thinking about things like that. If you had more time, what would you do with it? Are there things that you wish that you were involved with, maybe from a charitable perspective or like in your community? Are you interested in doing things like that? What would you do? Did you do things like that before? Would you like to get reengaged? It's a lot of talking and thinking, and as much as the client puts into it is, how much they're going to get out of it. But to
Right.
answer your question, I've got some great tools that help me do that. And, it's a conversation. But the North Star is a living document. So what's interesting is sometimes, I look at this like a journey with my clients. So sometimes they put together North Star and as they get further into the journey, let's say they do some discovery on some certain businesses, they'll come back and say, I want to make some changes to that North Star. They realize what they thought they wanted wasn't quite it. And
Right.
so then we change it. And that's okay because it's meant to be an iterative document.
Right. Right. It's a living document. It's a personal
Yeah.
document. It's not
Yeah.
something that you set in stone and that's what you go after because people evolve, time evolves. So yeah,
Exactly.
that makes a lot
Exactly.
of sense.
Mhm.
You mentioned, you talked about identifying or recognizing what you enjoy doing. What do you do for fun? What do you where do you want to spend your time at home? But oftentimes with dads, I see that there's sort of an underlying tension of feeling stuck between wanting to be a provider
Mhm.
and still doing the things that they enjoy and being present at home. How do
Mhm.
you kind of help your clients or help others see through that tension and kind of make it manageable?
Yeah. Well, I think that time management is, something that is difficult when you're working a lot of hours, and I understand that tension. I don't think it's isolated just to dads, although I can understand that I was the major breadwinner in my family at the time. Um, so I think that, creating a North Star and making space for that. I mean, I think their partners probably feel that too. So I think it's a conversation, and the North Star is to think is the place for, what do you want your future state to look like? So things aren't great now. No one's having time for themselves or having not enough of it. We're not having enough family time. We're not having our own time. This isn't what we envision, but what if it could look different? What would that look like? Would I work, how many hours a week would I work? How many hours a week would my wife work? What would that look like if we could create this state? And then you goal set, what that would look like. And then you look for finding income paths and ways to make that happen. But I think you need to set those goals together with your partner. Because first you set those goals and then you set about ways to achieve them and make sure you're both clear on the same goals.
I love how you frame that it's a conversation, right?
Yeah.
It's if you have a partner, I mean, literally the word partner means doing things together. And that includes setting those goals and figuring out a path to accomplishing them. And this is not a lot of there are several dads that I've talked to, they've put themselves into a mindset of I have to do this. I have to be the provider. I have to be at home.
Yeah.
But really it's not a one track setting. You have somebody you are partnered with. And not everybody has a partner, and respectfully that's perfectly
Mm.
normal and it's just as okay. But when you do have a
Mhm.
partner, it's not a one-way street. You don't have to be everything to everyone, right?
Right.
But you have to be able to open yourself up to work together to figure out what is in the best interests of not just yourself, but those around you, those that are most important to you. And the way you frame that is it's a conversation, it's
Right.
a two-way street, and you can have multiple providers in a family, as you mentioned, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes you might be more of a provider and sometimes less of a provider. But at the end of the day, it's not just about providing financially, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
you have to be there, you have to be present, you have to be provide emotionally,
Right.
right? Physically be there to have those conversations with your kids, with your spouse, with your partner. Like those things are equally important. And
Yeah.
you can't do that if you don't have those conversations,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
You get stuck in this kind of one track mind, and it's an easy trap to fall into. I think we all do from time to time,
Right.
but we have to remember to have those conversations. So I think it's really
Absolutely.
important. I really appreciate you pulling that out. So, we've talked about tensions a lot, and one of the tensions that I see a lot is that some people feel like they're running away from their job. Like it's they don't feel like it's the right job for them anymore, or they don't have the time to support their family, or maybe it's just a job that just causes a lot of stress and just not interesting. And some feel like they want to be moving towards something as opposed to
Mm.
away from something. How
Mhm.
do you tell the difference between running away from your current position, your current work, to moving towards something? Because I think your North Star, from my understanding, is helping you move towards something, not necessarily
Yeah.
run away from your
Yeah.
job. But how do you help tell that difference?
Right. So I think that, once you have your North Star, you use it to measure different income paths, possibilities, or vehicles for success is another word for that.
Sure.
You can use it to assess my current role and figure out what is it about this role that's, not working for me. If, and I talked about that quiet misalignment and you're not sure what it is, well, it should be clear when you measure it against your North Star. What is the actual issue here
Right.
if you haven't been able to verbalize it before? So, I think that would be a good start. I think that when you talk about running away from things, that's kind of a mentality, right? And we can get hung up on the way that we've been told to think about things. I think it's okay to grow and set new goals and realize every decision I make may not have been the best one. So, or this didn't work. You interview for a job 2 times, 3 times, okay, maybe 5 in some extreme cases. But how many of us you walk into a job, it's never exactly what they tell you it's gonna be, right?
Right.
So, I go through and I look at people's backgrounds with them and ask them, if they feel good about their career, if they've been successful. And so many people are so beat down and they say, No, I haven't been successful. And I'm looking at the profile going, why do you think that? I'm looking at this. What a great background you have. You're incredible. I said, do you feel this way because you left this role after a couple of years because it wasn't right for you? And then you went to this job and they laid you off. And they're like, well, yeah, that's the problem. I said, well, that wasn't your fault. We don't always know what we're getting into. We think we do. We've tried, we thought we knew what we were getting into, but you don't know what you don't know. So I think we take so much on, this was our fault. I made bad decisions. And we need to let some of that go. So much of how we perceive things is gosh, how we frame them up ourselves and give ourselves all of this baggage, and we need to be able to let that go
Right.
and, reset our focus. That's hard when you talk about running away from something. So a lot of dads out there, have had good educations, and you get into a job in a certain track and you're doing that work and you realize you don't like it.
Yep.
So if you were your parents, you would still just keep doing that job for 50 or 60 years and say, okay, that's life. But this is a new day and people pivot now.
Yep.
Even if you have a master's degree, even if you're a doctor, people decide they don't want to be doctors anymore and they do something else. It's not unheard of. People do it all the time. I have an advanced degree too. I left that behind. I walked away and I'm doing something completely different now. People still think it's kind of, avant garde to do that, but actually people do it more and more now when you realize that what you picked when you were 22 for your lifelong career didn't end up working out for you when you were 40.
Right.
So, right?
Yep. Times change, people change, and
People
we
pivot.
change. Yeah, absolutely. It's a fairly common belief, it seems, that, the work that you do didn't work out. So, but you kind of internalize that as your own fault. Are
Yeah.
there What other common beliefs kind of are holding people back right now beyond just like,
Yeah.
I'm being laid off and it's all my fault?
Right. Well, that one is so easy because so many people are getting laid off right now. Oh my goodness. So when I look at these resumes and these people are getting laid off, I'm like, you're fantastic.
Yeah.
It's not you. Talk to people all day long that have gotten laid off and they're great. So, there's just a lot of industries that are hard hit right now, like IT for one. And it's tough out there. And so it's easy to internalize that. I really do get it. But there are some things that are making it really hard right now. The use of AI to review resumes, it's making it so hard for people to get past, get through that first pass. So that's a commonly that's a big one. Um, so I hear that a lot, and it's really, really hard to hear, but I'm also happy to share because I talk to so many people. When I meet people and I talk to people that have sent hundreds of interviews and resumes not gotten an interview.
Mm.
But then I talk to people that have been plugging away for 6 months and, then things are starting to happen. So
Yes.
I hear a lot of good stories too, and I'm happy to share those with my clients to, give them encouragement. But in the meantime, they can learn about all their options while they continue to look for W-2 jobs. So,
Right. And so we are certainly in a challenging economy right now. There's
yeah,
no other way to put it. Like, jobs are becoming more scarce. There's lots of reductions in force. There are fewer new job openings currently across a broad sector, right? It's not just
yeah,
one thing.
yeah,
So in some cases, a lot of dads I've talked to recently are saying that they kind of feel stuck and they don't want to lose what they already have because they know it is challenging. So how can
mhm.
dads start exploring new possibilities without blowing up their current situation or even creating stress at home?
Right, right. So there are a lot of types of I totally get that perspective. And actually, I say a lot of my clients are in that same boat where they see the insecurity in the job market. They're like, thank goodness I have a position.
Yeah.
It totally sucks, but thank God I have it. And I want to protect myself from what might happen in the future because I see what's going on. There's constant layoffs. It could very well be me because it has nothing to do with performance, these layoffs. and it could be me in the future. So, what can I do to protect my family? So, a lot of my clients are very interested in starting additional revenue streams on the side. So, that's something that I really work with people about. There are so many different business opportunities that you can start on the side. It's something that, depending on, if you have a partner, it's something you guys can maybe do together. And so, there's so many opportunities that way. That's something that allows you to maintain your current income stream,
Right.
manage it on the side, and let that, keep building and building to kind of protect yourself and keep earning towards your goals. And maybe at some point you choose just to cut away from the corporate world. Maybe you don't ever get laid off. So you keep it going forever, or you decide to walk away at a certain point when your additional revenue stream gets big enough to support that. So that's a very popular way to go, especially for people that are a little bit risk adverse. That's a very popular way to go. And there's so many different models to support that.
And when somebody does say, okay, maybe I'll stay at my current job, but I want to try something on the side, maybe with my partner, maybe on my own, whatever it is. I just want to kind of do something. What's that kind of first step that you have them take?
So once we've already, so the great thing is, so the first work is to work on the goals. Then after we do the North Star, we talk a little bit more about um, what your skill sets are, your transferable skills, your business interests. So then at that point, if they're interested in learning about some specific business models, I can introduce them to a few of my business partners, and I've got over 250. And then they can actually get into the nitty gritty of exploring some specific business models. And because I already know them and know what their goals are, and their skills and their business interests, I'll show them models, a few that are available in their area and that I think could meet their goals. And then they can get in there and do a deep dive, learning about specific models, and then continue to meet with me. And I'll kind of help them through the process, making sure they're still tracking on their goals, making sure that all their questions are getting answered. And then they just decide one call at a time if they want to keep learning about those different business models. That's how it works.
Very cool. And so that is an, it is a change, right? It's a big change to add something onto your existing
Sure.
work. And so there's
Yeah.
going to be some sort of time commitment in there and
Yeah.
some, you know,
Mhm.
mental load that you are taking
Mhm.
to do that. So before or while making that kind of change,
Mhm.
you talked earlier about having a conversation with your partner.
Yeah.
What kinds of conversations should dads be having with their partners or with their families as they explore these changes?
Sure. So when I talk about learning, the ins and outs of a business, we call that the discovery process. And that's something you would include your spouse in. So they would also be hearing the same things you're hearing. And so different businesses had different requirements or different needs in terms of how much you would need to be involved, how many hours a week are we talking, different investment levels, all of those things. Everything's so specific to every business. So those are the things, yeah, you're going to need to work with your spouse to say, does this make sense for our family? Does this particular opportunity make sense for our family, right? Is this something that we can manage? Is this something that, we can do between the two of us? Yeah, if you have a partner, your partner absolutely has to be involved in those conversations to make sure that, it makes sense for you. And they would be a part of that whole discovery process. It's a process. There's a lot to learn about a business to know if it's right for you. We're not talking like 3 phone calls here.
Right.
We're talking like a process that takes to really learn about a model and find out if it's right for you. You need to understand the business model, the marketing, the initial training, the ongoing training, any systems that they use. You need to speak to other owners. You need to meet the corporate team. That takes between 4 to 8 weeks. And it really takes as long as it takes for you to get all your questions answered. So it's a process.
Yeah.
It's a serious process. And you need to be really devoted to it and wanting to get all those answers. And then as you go along the way, sometimes you get part of the way through it and you're like, I've heard enough. This isn't going to be for us. And that's okay.
Right.
And that's okay. And then sometimes you get all the way to the end. So, it's meant to be a very all-encompassing process so that you know it so well by the time you get to the end of the process, you can imagine what a day in the life would look like if you were an owner. That's how well you need to know it.
Right. And it's like you said, it's a process. So you're taking steps, right? Not
Yes.
one giant leap right at the beginning. You
No,
can't rush through these things,
that's right.
right? You take the first step, then you take the second step. And
That's
you gotta,
right.
again, slow things down to a point where, like you said, you understand the models, the market, all the things that are involved with whatever it is that you are
Right.
venturing into.
Yes.
So if a dad is listening right now, feels restless, but kind of unsure what to do next, what one small low pressure step could he take this week to start getting some clarity?
Well, I think that he should write down what feels off, without trying to fix it. Just what is feeling off this week. Sometimes clarity really starts with just naming what's off. I think that'd be a great first start.
I love that. It's practical, right? It's not
Mhm.
something that's like that you need an encyclopedia to do. Like you can just
Right.
sit down and be like,
Yeah.
okay, what is off? And just
Right.
identify it. Like I said,
Mhm.
name it. Once it
Mhm.
has a name, then you can address it,
Right.
right? It's very hard to address something you can't actually identify.
Mhm.
So that's great advice. I appreciate that. This is great, but I want to kind of change things up and jump into our speed round. You ready? And it's
Yeah.
a lot of questions about nothing, but everything at the same time. So I just 5 quick questions, and we will start with what's the first kid show theme song that comes to mind?
Kim Possible.
Kim Possible. Wow.
Dating myself there.
Classic. Love it. What was your very first job?
Waitress.
Waitress. Excellent. Would you rather spend 24 hours with a toddler-sized T-Rex or a T-Rex-sized toddler?
Both are absolutely terrifying. I refuse to answer in case it happens. No.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Picture with Sheryl Crow and Kid Rock.
Very nice. What's the weirdest thing you've ever carried around in your bag, briefcase, or pockets?
Oh, ever carried around? Ever, ever? Oh my gosh. Oh, well, when I had, like, kids in diapers, I always carried around, like, a huge thing of Aquaphor, not like a little tube, like a massive tub of Aquaphor, just whatever, always tub of Aquaphor
Yeah.
for every problem that you have,
Right.
Aquaphor.
Yeah. Yes, they certainly got a lot of my money back in the day.
Yeah.
I understand that. Well, you survived the speed round. Thank you. I appreciate that. Before we wrap up, for anyone listening who's nodding along and thinking, this is exactly where I am, where's the best place for them to find you or reach out?
Yeah, so you can go to Steph, like my name, STEPH ahead.com. That will take you right to my corporate website where you can give me your contact information and I will reach out to you directly. You can tool around on my website, you could book an appointment and check out all my tools.
Excellent. Very cool. Very clever URL as well.
Thank you.
So, Stephanie, thank you so much for the conversation. I appreciate the honesty and the perspective and the way you kind of talk about presence that feels real, not theoretical, of finding your North Star. It's a very personal thing. And I know a lot of dads listening are going to hear themselves in what you shared and hopefully walk away with something they can actually use. So thanks for being here and for the work you're doing. I appreciate it. Finally, if you're a dad listening to this and trying to figure out what comes next, maybe you're in between jobs, starting something new, or just looking for more meaning in your work, head to gap2gig.com and subscribe to the Gap to Gig newsletter. And if you took something valuable from this episode, send it to a dad you think could also benefit. Until next time, I'm Michael Jacobs, and this is Gap to Gig, where we're building work that fits your life, not the other way around.